With Season 2 well underway, we've obviously completed off pretty much everything that we have got to offer over on the Ibiza map, and it starts to raise a question. What's coming next for Test Drive Unlimited? Is Season 2 now finished? Have we completed everything that there is to do? What can be done to help us out with the game? So obviously I've spent the last week abroad, had some time away to reflect on a few things. Test Drive Unlimited, of course, was one of the key things I really wanted to focus on. Thinking about where the game is currently positioned, what we still have to do in the game, what else could be done to improve the game. Now, today's video is going to be a little bit different, guys. I really wanted to spend some time actually looking at the game itself, not trying to cast too much of a negative limelight on the physical game, but more to think about the improvements, what can be done, where can the engagement come from to keep us motivated and active within the game. We know already that the servers are not the most popular. There's obviously a big issue with that, and for me the big way that we fix this, well, is making it cross-platform. For me, that would make a huge difference to the game. It would make it more engaging. There would be more active players across the map, across every part of Ibiza map, every part of Hong Kong Island. So for me that would be a very simple fix, and it's one thing I don't know why we don't have. Why me playing this on Steam cannot play perhaps you playing on PlayStation or on Xbox. It would be a huge uptake in server activity, I believe, if we were to see that one happen. Now, over the last week, I've actually spent time playing the Nintendo Switch. I was playing Need for Speed Rivals, and for me, it was awful. Didn't enjoy it whatsoever. It was a massive waste of money to buy a Switch and buy Need for Speed for the trip, and I literally played it 4 times. Did not enjoy the game whatsoever. Then coming back to jump onto Test Drive Unlimited, we can then see exactly what it is we have in front of us. We do have a great game. I do firmly believe we have a fantastic game in our hands. It just needs a little bit of more focus from the devs, more of an improvement. I would say that the engagement level is the key driver. I would say we need to have that level of engagement within game that we just don't have yet. Take a look at Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon, Assetto Corsa. They've made huge leaps forward throughout the years. Yes, they've had years to develop it, but we could also argue that Soft Test Drive Unlimited back to TDU2. So I don't really think that's much of an excuse. Perhaps budget, and that's a fair way we could look at this one. So when we then bring ourselves back to what we have in front of us, the game itself, where is the game currently positioned? For me, it's in a transition period. We're now going between Season 2 and Season 3. We should have a lot in front of us to do, and arguably we do. I do spend a fair amount of time playing this, maybe 1 to 2 hours every single night, which is perhaps more people, hence why I'm probably at the level of completion that I'm at compared to a lot of other people, and that's a fair argument. But I would also argue that there should still be more for me to do in the game, where the game's currently positioned. What are we, 1, maybe 2 months from Season 2? Into Season 2 rather, a month into it. There should still be plenty for me to do here on the Ibiza map, and I would have to say that there just isn't, and it is starting to create a little bit of frustration. Let's quickly take a look at the map. In particular, I want to focus in on the races, and this for me has been a huge thing in game and a huge bonus to the game. This is something we wanted to see for quite a long time when we come over to look at the races. Right now we're looking at a drive in the countryside, and it's for the supercar category. We obviously know this is on a rotation and it will change to hypercar or perhaps the daily driver category. But the big issue I do have so far here is the lack of rotation, perhaps one thing, but the lack of how the rotation works. Let me explain. Right here we're looking at the Chan Bernat Special. This one rotates between cross country and daily driver. That's all right. But we come down to the likes of shopping in Ibiza town, down to conquering Dalt Via, Champions Parade, and what's this one here, the Highway to Heaven. For me, the rotation doesn't happen enough with the category of cars. Now, yes, not everybody will want to use a daily driver on the Highway to Heaven. I can understand that. It's a long race. But why can't we have that rotation? Why can't we take the Audi TTRS perhaps on Highway to Heaven? Or the Grand Tourers? I only see 2 or 3 races that we ever really get to use the Grand Tourers on. So why can't I use them on Shopping Ibiza Town, through Park via, there may be some of these races that the Grand Tourers do appear on, but for me, the Grand Tourer category, it just doesn't appear enough. We can actually see it here on the trip around the peninsula. I just don't feel that the rotation happens just enough for the Grand Tourer category. So perhaps we need perhaps a few more races on Ibiza. I don't think it would go amiss, but also the uptick in the rotation of the races, I think, would be a huge bonus for Test Drive Unlimited over on the Ibiza map. So then we come over to the HQ, and what we can see in front of us, we've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, 6 players, whatever it might be in here, and that's great. But when we then move out onto the map, well, we don't tend to see those players, and it does frustrate me slightly. We want to have, you know, the kind of community races, building with people and interacting, and for me, I personally don't see it enough. It might not be the same case for everybody. Please do let me know if you're, you know, getting tons of engagement in the game. But I don't see enough players on the map. Maybe it is just a server issue. It might just be to me personally. But like I mentioned earlier, if we could make a cross-platform here, make it, you know, open it up across the servers, we would have a fantastic level of engagement in front of us. And we would obviously be able to enjoy more of the game with friends, create a bigger community within TDU. Then, of course, we talk about the cars that we then got with Season 2, and this is an issue that I do not have with the game. With the likes of the Celine Edition 500, the Celine Edition Chevrolet C1, the Celine Edition Alfa Romeo 4C, and of course the Celine Edition Alpine A110. Love having the additions to the game, the quirkiness of the cars, the likes of the Alpine having four-wheel drive, the likes of the Fiat 500, or the Abarth 500 being rear-wheel drive. Made some content on that, actually really enjoy it. I've not quite jumped into the C1, I don't have a desire for that car. That might change going forward. I've already got the stock C1. It's not a car I did want to jump in. The Alpha 4C, probably one of the best cars in the game. I've had so much fun playing about with the 4C. The cars outside is the one I do want to talk about. First of all, the California. This obviously coming back to the game, a lot of excitement around it. I test drove it and I didn't get the urge to buy that car. I might actually buy it, tune it, see if it is any better, but the big issue does come here. Once again, it is in the Grand Tourer category, and over on this Ibiza map, like I mentioned earlier, we just don't get enough rotation for the Grand Tourers, so perhaps this is a car for taking back over towards Hong Kong. Then we talk about the Jaguar Edition Aventador. It's 6 million credits. I've just spent a week not playing the game, and you can see up in the top right hand corner, I've only got 3 million credits, so it's still out of reach for me to attain that. Now, it would only take a couple of days to make the credits to do that. It isn't an issue, but it is slightly out of reach. Then we take a look at the W Motors Fenner. 8 million credits. It's incredibly out of reach where I'm currently positioned in game. It would take a couple of days, maybe a week for me to, earn that money. And for the casual player, it's going to take so much longer to make that 8 million to use the Fenner, which they might not actually like. I do imagine they will. This thing's going to be incredible. 4-wheel drive system, OP, with the electric boost. It's going to be insane. The Jaguar Edition, it's an Aventador. Is it worth the 6 million? I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm going to be buying that car at some point. So to touch on the cars that came to the game, I have no disappointment with this one. But I would like to see more. We obviously had just a couple of weeks ago the Japanese road trip, Japanese motor show, whatever the live weekly event was called. But it was all about Nissan. Where's the Mitsubishi? Where's the Subaru? Where's the Mazda? There's a huge selection of cars that we don't have in the game. The Lexus LFA. There's so many cars that we could have in game. So is it a licensing issue? Why don't we have these cars in TDU? Yes, it is obviously focused largely around these luxury cars, but it's a car game after all. We want to be using any car that we can use. And for me not to have some of the standard, Japanese JDM style cars, the R34 Skylines, the Subaru Impreza WRX STIs, or the P1s, the Mitsubishi Evolutions, the list's obviously almost endless there. There's so many cars that we do want to have in games. So perhaps Season 2, we do get additions of more cars. If they're quirky updates like on cars we've already got, I also wouldn't be overly mad, but I do think we need a bigger roster of cars in game. So when we do really start to focus on, well, what's next for the game, what's next for myself, and what's next for content, well, I think I'm almost at the point here where I'm starting to exhaust what we have on the Ibiza map. Now again, that might be due to the amount of time I personally play the game. I'm a fair few hours deep into this one. You guys can imagine, you've obviously seen the previous update that I did all around Season 1, you know, the kind of overview of Season 1. This is somewhat of a mid-level of Season 2 update, just to kind of give an overview of where I'm positioned with the game. And I feel I've exhausted a lot of the Ibiza map. There are still things to do, there are still cars to explore here. Still not used that Caterham on the highway to heaven, which we already know is going to be fantastically OP. We can see the leaderboard, how fast that Caterham has been. So yeah, I wouldn't say I've completely, you know, exhausted everything on Ibiza, but I've exhausted a lot here. I've done a lot of, you know, the races that we have. I've obviously venture through all of the rotations that we've got there, set some really good times on the leaderboard, challenge for some top places. Thoroughly enjoyed what we've had in front of us on the Ibiza map. But I think for me, going forward, I will be coming back over to Hong Kong Island more. It's obviously a bigger map, it's a much wetter map as well, so it gives us a little bit of a difference with, you know, weather conditions and so forth. But I do think that going forward, I will probably be coming back to Hong Kong a lot more. The only time I tend to come back here is with the live weekly races, which for me is still one of the biggest things that keeps this game very much alive. The weekly races have been absolutely phenomenal, and I've got semi-slick tyres fitted to this Mustang. It's being incredibly difficult to drive. Let me just actually put some standard tyres onto this one, make it a little bit more tame to drive, shall we say. So for me, yeah, I'll be probably coming back over to the Hong Kong Island map more now, exploring some of the races that we've got there, perhaps using some of the new cars, the Celine cars in these races, which is things that I have not done. And of course, the live weekly events, going to keep updating those ones, guys. Like I mentioned, I think it's one of the biggest, best things in the game right now, so I'm going to continue to cover the live weekly events. This weekly event, obviously I did the video just yesterday. There was an issue getting this weekly event live to start with. It came up a day late. Then when it did come live, the point system wasn't active, so we couldn't, of course, earn the countryside sticker. It's a sticker, it's fine, but it's progression. It's things we want to do in the game is complete out that progression. So yeah, there has been some issues. Every game's got issues, just like when we come back onto the map and there's a Fiat 500 in front of us. So yeah, like any game, I'm not bashing it. There are issues, there can be improvements, but overall, for me, it is still a fantastic game. It's still a game I want to play. It's just a case of finding new things in the game for making content on, finding those new fun, engaging races. There's still plenty of cars I've still not used. There's still plenty of challenges that I still want to complete, whether it's using the worst car in every category to complete off certain races. Obviously, the big races that we got with the Crown Jewel, there's new cars that we can do there. Are we going to be faster with some of these cars? We've obviously developed or improved some of the tunes that we've had. For me, there's still so much to do in Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. Then we can obviously look forward towards Season 3. Are we going to see some improvements that we personally want to see? Are we going to start seeing race rotations here on Hong Kong Island? I think it's going to be huge. Should we start to see some of these rotations in the race? Let's just pick out some races in particular. That one there's actually a good one. The Granite Quarry Rush. 62% gravel, asphalt, 33% gravel in the cross-country category. Let's get a rotation on it. Let's start using a daily driver. Let's take it on over towards the Cape Escape. It's a supercar race. Let's use a hypercar or let's use a Grand Tourer on this one. Then, of course, we can start to talk about the Crown Jewel races. Probably picked the worst one possible right there. Where's our next one actually? Let's go up to this top one here. This will be a good one to pick out. Around Mount Davis, that hypercar race. Well, wouldn't that one there actually be a very good pick? It's not the Crown Jewel race, but wouldn't that there be a good pick for a daily driver or a Grand Tourer to jump into to see, you know, what kind of times we can do there? The Crown Jewel Sapphire race. This one here is, of course, one of my favourite ones, I would have to say. There's a lot we can do here. The restriction for this one, however, is a PR restriction. Why not open up the PR for this one? Let us choose what we want to do with it. I feel that there's so much we can do here. This race, the Crown Jewel Nacre race, which is limited to Bugatti, Lamborghini or Porsche. Open it up. Any hypercar or any supercar. For me, I think it would be a huge improvement going into Season 3 if they would open the door to race rotation. Now, would that alleviate the requirement for more cars? Perhaps, but I don't think it would keep everybody happy. I do feel it is something that we are going to need. New cars, race rotation, open up the servers, let's play with everybody across the board. Guys, I just wanted to come on, do a little bit of a different video for today, kind of talk about where I'm positioned at with the game, the state of the game essentially. I do hope you've enjoyed it. Please let me know any of your thoughts, opinions, comments down below in the comments section, guys. Stay tuned for more updates on Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown.